Hey there again, church family. Pastor Matt here. Hey, for this Thursday update, I want to pick up where I left off last time, talking to you about how you can use your time of having to practice social distancing from people as a time that will help you draw closer to the Lord. On Tuesday, I reminded you that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. And over the last couple of weeks, all of our lives have changed, and all of it has happened outside of our control. But our response during this time is completely within our control. So how can I choose to grow in a time like this? A few weeks ago, on a Sunday morning, we took a look at this very question. How can we choose to grow? Well, we studied Ephesians 4:11 through 16, and I want to read that to you again. This passage gives us a full picture of God's plan for our spiritual growth. And I'll read that now, and then I will briefly highlight the main points of that passage, just in case you weren't at church that Sunday. Ephesians 4:11 through 16 says, Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is, Christ. From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Now, first of all, in verses 11 and 12, we see that God calls upon church leaders to equip the church for works of service. That's what I'm trying to do right now. And it's what we try to do in our Sunday sermons and in all the other times that you give us the chance to speak into your life. In verse 16, we see that the whole body of Christ, that is the church, grows and builds itself up in love. So our church family plays an important role in our spiritual growth too. God calls upon the church body to build itself. Now that means that you and I can have an impact on others' spiritual growth by loving them and encouraging them and supporting them. Now the third thing to observe here, and this is the part I want to focus on today, in verse 16 we read that the body is built as each part does its work. Now, in other words, you must take personal responsibility for your own spiritual growth, and the word used to describe it in this passage, work, is not there by accident. So, how do we work on our spiritual growth? Well, first of all, we must choose to be intentional about it. Growth is not automatic. This quarantine presents us with potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a distraction-free, focused effort at developing new habits that will breathe life into our relationship with the Lord. So don't waste it. Be intentional about your spiritual growth. Secondly, get started today. Don't waste time trying to find the absolute best way to do it. Don't wait until you found a perfect example or model to follow. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Just start. Motivation will not strike you like lightning. Get started in your journey of spiritual growth, and soon you will find that the reasons to keep growing outweigh the reasons to start growing. Now, a little bit each and every day will compound over time, so get started. Third, keep it simple. Now, I know that some of you live with a go big or go home attitude all the time, but I'm telling you, if you haven't been investing in your spiritual growth at all, and then all of a sudden you're spending hundreds of dollars on commentaries and you're making plans to memorize the entire book of Leviticus word for word, if you try to do that, you're going to crash and burn. Start small. Start by setting aside 15, 20 minutes a day to read and to think and to pray. You can do 15 minutes, I promise. Look, you spend more time than that every day scrolling through Facebook, watching Netflix, playing games on your phone, listening to sports talk or news talk radio, or even nowadays, probably you spend that much time hiding from your kids and your spouse in the bathroom. 15 minutes. Keep it simple. Be intentional. Get started. Keep it simple. Okay, that's it for this video. Now, after the brief lesson that you just got, you might be saying, well, yeah, but how? Well, next week on Tuesday, I want to do my part in equipping you by showing you a quick, simple, effective method for beginning to invest in your spiritual growth. This Sunday morning, we will have a sermon uploaded to Facebook and to YouTube, and Pastor Phil will be preaching from Judges 3 about the first 3 judges that we meet in the narrative. A guy named Othniel, a guy named Ehud, and a guy named Shamgar. Now let's just say that you might be surprised by what we read and what we discover about the good, the bad, and the ugly in this chapter in Judges. I would encourage you to read that chapter in advance of the sermon. Now until then, spend some time each day helping others grow by encouraging them, by supporting them, by praying for them, and by loving them. And I love you guys. We are in this together, so let's get better together.